On September the 11th, 2001, 19 militants associated with the extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 airliners and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A 3rd plane hit the Pentagon just outside Washington, D.C., and the 4th plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Over 3,000 people were killed during the attacks in New York City and Washington, D.C., including more than 400 police officers and firefighters. It was a clear Tuesday morning. An American Airlines Boeing 767 loaded with 20,000 gallons of jet fuel crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact left a gaping, burning hole near the 80th floor of the 110-story skyscraper. Instantly, hundreds of people were killed, hundreds more trapped. As the evacuation of the tower and its twin got underway, television cameras broadcasted live images of what people initially thought was an accident. Then, 18 minutes after the first plane hit, a second Boeing 767 United Airlines appeared out of the sky, turned sharply toward the World Trade Center, and sliced into the South Tower near the 60th floor. That collision caused a massive explosion that showered debris over surrounding buildings and the streets below. America was then officially under attack. These attacks reportedly were financed by the Saudi fugitive Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda terrorist organization. They allegedly were acting in retaliation for America's support of Israel and its involvement in the Persian Gulf War and its continued military presence in the Middle East. Some of the terrorists had lived in the United States for more than a year and had taken flying lessons at the American commercial flight schools. Others had slipped into the country in the months before September 11. The 19 terrorists smuggled box cutters and knives through security at the airports and boarded the 4 flights bound for California. They chose those particular flights because the planes were loaded with fuel for the long transcontinental journey. Soon after takeoff, the terrorists commandeered the 4 planes and took the controls, transforming these jets into missiles. Less than 15 minutes after the terrorists struck the nerve center of the U.S. military, a catastrophic turn for the worst when the South Tower of the World Trade Center collapsed. The structured steel of the skyscraper, built to withstand winds in excess of 200 miles per hour and a large conventional fire, could not withstand the tremendous heat generated by the burning of the jet fuel. At 10:30 a.m., the other Trade Center tower collapsed. Close to 3,000 people died in the World Trade Center and in its vicinity, including 343 firefighters and paramedics, 23 New York City police officers, and 37 Port Authority police officers who were struggling to complete an evacuation of the buildings. Only 6 people in the World Trade Center towers at the time of their collapse survived. Almost 10,000 others were treated for injuries, many severe. Meanwhile, a 4th California-bound plane, United Flight 93, was hijacked about 40 minutes after leaving Newark International Airport in New Jersey. The plane had been delayed in takeoff as passengers learned of the New York events via cell phone calls. One of the passengers, Thomas Burnett Jr., told his wife over the phone, "I know we're all going to die. There's 3 of us who are going to do something about it. I love you, honey." Another passenger, Todd Beamer, was heard saying, "Are you guys ready? Let's roll," over the open line as they realized their flight was in jeopardy as well. Sandy Bradshaw, a flight attendant, called her husband and explained what had happened. She said to him, her last words, "Everyone's running to first class. I've got to go. Bye." The passengers fought the 4 hijackers and are suspected to have attacked the cockpit. The plane flipped over, sped toward the ground, 500 miles per hour, crashing in a rural field in western Pennsylvania at 10:10 a.m. All 45 people aboard were killed. Its intended target is not known, but the theories include White House, the U.S. Capitol, Camp David presidential retreat in Maryland, or one of several nuclear power plants along the eastern seaboard. At 7 p.m. that evening, President George W. Bush, who had spent the day being shuttled around the country because of security concerns, returned to the White House. At 9 p.m., he delivered the televised address from the Oval Office declaring, "Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shattered steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve." In reference to the eventual U.S. military response, he declared, "We will make no distinction between the terrorists who committed these acts and those who harbored them." Terrorist acts have continued in our country, and those brave people still rise to keep our home, the land of freedom, because of the brave. God bless America. Long may it stand.